Please be seated. As many of you know, I just returned as of 11 o'clock last night from a trip to Tennessee for the Mountaintop Project. That's the Mountain Tennessee Outreach Project with several of our youth in this congregation, which unfortunately left me not a whole lot of time for sermon prep, so bear with me here. As you can see, I have some blisters. I learned how to work in the hot Tennessee sun. I now know what hot tin feels like in the hot Tennessee sun. I know more about building porches for trailers than I ever wanted to know. I will never again pass a trailer without wondering who made this porch. But this was a great trip. We had 6 of the youth here, plus me and Deb Parker, heading down to Tennessee with a group from St. Thomas in Terrace Park outside of Cincinnati. So we drove to Cincinnati, we met them and their 4 vans, and we went down to Tennessee. And on the way to Tennessee, I was driving behind this big Hertz yellow van that was our tool van. And on the back of it were 2 stickers. One said, "Honk if you love Jesus." A lot of people honked. That was great. The other said, "I am a tool." This was our tool truck. And it struck me as I was standing in the Tennessee sun, 95 degrees, trying to tear down a big old porch on a trailer, trying to put up a new porch, that even though we had brought a van full of tools, what we had really brought was a bunch of tools for Jesus. You see, we had a theme this week at the Mountaintop Project in Tennessee. The theme was made, that each of us was made. One day was, I am made in God's image. One day was, we are made to serve. We are made to pray. We are made to lead. We are made to work. And I realized as I was down there that we are all made as tools. We are all made as tools to serve God and God's people on earth. We are God's toolbox. And what does the Lord's Prayer have to say about us as God's toolbox? It's pretty amazing. When you start with Our Father, that sets the stage. Our, all of us, Father. We all have parents on earth who gave us life, but the source of that life, the ultimate source, our ultimate parent, the ultimate giver of all life, is God in heaven. And if God is the source of all our lives, then at the very heart, each one of us is a creation of God. We are all related as creations of God. And when we say, "Hallowed be thy name," we are saying that each one of us has a touch of that holiness in us. And when we are loving each other and ourselves, we are loving God. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. This is a little prayer of self-dedication. We are naming ourselves as tools of God. We are not able to bring about God's reign on earth ourselves. But when we use ourselves as God's tools, we can bring about a little of that here. Whether it's just spending time with somebody, building a porch in Tennessee, or just loving somebody. We are helping God's kingdom come, God's will be done here on earth like it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. One of the things I love most about working in this church is being here on Friday mornings when the Al-Anon meeting is. Because when they recite the Lord's Prayer, they put a little pause after "give us this day." Each day is our first gift every day from God. And then we go on to ask, give us our daily bread. Remember when the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness and they had the manna. Their temptation was to gather up as much of it as they could. And what they found was the excess would rot overnight. We ask God to give us what we need for this day. Not that there's anything wrong with saving for the future. Not that there's anything wrong with planning. But there is something wrong with thinking that by our own efforts we can somehow accumulate enough that we don't need God anymore. We are God's tools. God will supply us with what we need each and every day. And then we ask God to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Look at us not as the flawed and broken tools of God that we are, but see the perfection that we were created to be, so that we can look at each other and see worn out, chipped, and broken tools, but look past that and see the usefulness there. Just because this hammer may have broken doesn't mean that it can't be a wonderful tool to help a nail puller get in there and dig out that nail. Just because the screwdriver is just starting out in this world and it's still really small. Yes, it may not be able to put in this huge screw, but it can take care of this little screw over here. Things that seem to be misfits or worn out still have their use. And this is where we say, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Take us as your tools and put them where they are most needed. Don't put us where we are ill-suited. Don't take a little tiny 10-pound hammer and use it to drive in what a sledgehammer is needed for. Put us where we need to be, where we can be most useful. We ask this, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. This is a prayer of self-identification as Christians and of self-dedication to Christian work. This is a prayer calling upon God's assistance and thanking God for all that we have. And this is a prayer that calls us all together in Christian unity as the community of God on earth. You know, when we were at this project, at this Tennessee mountaintop project, I found the work very fulfilling and the worship strangely unsatisfying. And I wondered about this. The music is not what I'm used to. The prayers are not what I'm used to. The preaching is not what I'm used to. But I'm not that shallow. I can go with what I'm not used to. I finally realized what I was missing. We never said the Lord's Prayer. I never felt like I had prayed. And as Episcopalians, whenever 2 or 3 are gathered, we say the Lord's Prayer to dedicate ourselves to God's service, to name ourselves as God's creation, and to give our lives as God's tools in the world. And I ask you, when you go forth today, do so proudly bearing the title of Tool of God. And as you go through this day, as you start the next day, remind yourselves with those words, Our Father, who art in heaven. Start your day with this. Finish your day with this. Dedicate your day with this. And as we go through this service, in our great Thanksgiving at the communion table, and we recite the Lord's Prayer, take this moment to dedicate this day and the days to come to the service of God. Amen.
Amen. Let us now rise and affirm our faith in the words of the Nicene Creed on page 326. We believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. We believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, eternally begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made,